to Grown Black Folks Talk about unity with like-minded people as a solution. Okay, first, let me do a demonstration of what exactly that's going to take. Housekeeping, housekeeping. Let me be sure I have the right subscriber. Uh, I made a public statement on the video what wise black women can do in the year of a 403-year argument. And I made a statement that there was a subscriber that I had made a response about. He had asked about when is God going to do something about white supremacy, and I listed how God has been doing it. The Confederacy lost, Nazi Germany lost, a certain 45th president of the United States lost, but God has a lot of patience, and so allows that to continue to give us time to get it right with him. And I made the statement that he must not have liked the answer because he deleted his comment and mine. Subscriber Lamar JLP914 got back to me and said, no, I didn't delete that comment. I actually responded thanking you for your reply. And I said that I would make a public correction. And I'm doing this now. I was wrong, Lamar. I apologize. I was wrong, and I'm sorry for misunderstanding what happened. Perhaps the people who run YouTube had one of those days when they remembered they may have had a Confederate relative and didn't like it. Why am I doing this first? Because it illustrates something that we're going to need to be able to work with. Anybody can make a mistake, but if I chose to protect my ego, that becomes intentional disrespect. And as much as we as black women complain about the disrespect we get from black men, it is not fallen to us to then emulate it to protect our egos. And this goes to why we do not have the unity necessary in the mass to do certain things. Today, this is a follow-up video. Kevin Durant decided he was going to withdraw his trade request and stay with the Nets. I did a long video about the fact that Kevin Durant could go toe-to-toe with the ownership of the Nets is a microcosm of a 403-year argument that has been going on between black men and specifically in the United States because their history is so much longer in bearing the load. Some of us may not have been aware. Shout out to attorney Dennis Sperling. He is a management figure, but every now and again, even a stop clock is right once, twice a day. He brought to the attention of people on his show several years ago that for the first 170, 180 years, when people thought they'd be able to import slaves forever, it was primarily black men who really did the work to take a relatively raw country and turn it into a European-style nation. So the argument is that much longer in terms of in the mass. And then in the 1800s, the stories we know about with families being sold apart and black women being forced to have studs on them based on their masters breeding them, and black men, of course, not being able to protect black women from these things, come from about 1790 and onward. But unfortunately, for the average black man, that argument doesn't go anywhere. You have to almost be a Kevin Durant status. I am refraining from engaging in the arguments of whether he was right or wrong. There are only two details that I want to bring to your attention today. I knew that it was likely that he was not going to be able to have his will done because he had signed a contract for 4 years, meaning that although his raw talent gives him leverage, he didn't have any other leverage because he'd already signed a contract. So ownership could say yes or no. The fact that they entertained it, however, tells you the kind of talent and the kind of ability and the kind of value. And the argument about Kevin Durant is largely about a black man wanting his value respected and the long arc of how it has not been done. And my point was how black men look often for black women to compensate, and we can't because you got 403 years of disrespect and nobody can compensate anybody for that, but there is a way out. When Mr. Curt Flood led the campaign to get athletes free agency, you know why he succeeded? It was because of the time in history. Black men and women were more unified then. There's a reason why many black men ideate about going back to that time. Now, black women, if you talk to your aunties, your moms, your grandmoms, the unity was very costly for black women in many ways. That their children and their daughters and granddaughters, we're not going to do that. We're absolutely not going to do it. We're not going to put up with. Ain't no way in the world. No. But the point is, the unity is what also allowed, because if Kevin Durant, Mr. Kevin Durant, could have been backed up in the way that Kurt Flood was backed up. Yes, it cost him his career, but people knew, even ownership knew at that time it was going to be a problem if all black athletes got on point and if black people really began supporting teams that were for this and stopped supporting teams that were against it. It was going to be an issue then. There was more unity. Today, with all the fighting that we have going on, you just go through the black sectors of Twitter and YouTube and all around. Let me tell you a little story about capital and labor. Karl Marx was 160 years behind when he wrote the Communist Manifesto. You don't need to go any further than James Madison to understand the trick bag that even employees in this country are in. For those of you who are conservatives and perhaps conservatarian, I know I have at least one, shout out to Chris, the known conservatarian on this channel. You think that if we can somehow get back to the founding fathers, that a lot of problems will be solved. No, most of you who are white are descended from people that James Madison considered the offscouring of Europe. Why? Because a lot of the white people who were poor, who came in first, were what we would call today over-leveraged, indentured servitude. A lot of the rest were never going to be able to pay off their debts and get a life in Europe, so they came here. James Madison, John Jay, and Alexander Hamilton were writing to their fellow high-class men in New York, which also meant that they were writing a lot of New York slave owners of the same class as themselves. Most of you do not realize that New York State was the second largest slave state in the Union up to 1827, only behind Virginia. You ever wonder why racist stuff is always popping off in upstate New York like nothing has ever changed? That's why. Honor where honor's due. Reverend Henry Varick and the men and women of the African Methodist Episcopal Church of New York State put in 50 years of abolition work to get New York to give it up on July 4th, 1827. Reverend Henry Varick is right there with the founding fathers. He began his work in 1777 while the Revolutionary War was still going on. He is the unsung founding father of freedom. May have to do a whole video about that at some point. But the point I'm trying to make, though, when James Madison is writing The Good Gentleman of New York, he's writing a lot of his fellow slave owners. But they also had to figure out what they were going to do for all these poor men from Europe that they despised. And so James Madison broke down in Federalist Papers number 10, the kind of government that we're going to have is going to keep people factionalized. We're going to keep them in factions because we can keep them arguing with each other. We can keep them pursuing their own interests and getting in each other's way. Then we'll be able to make sure to secure our property and our rights from the worst sort of people and maintain them for the better and the best sort of people. Do you understand the trick bag that people, we're not even talking about women. We're not even talking about black people yet. We're talking about average white men. Would you understand the trick bag that labor was in 160 years before Karl Marx came along to say anything about it? Do you understand the trick bag that employees were going to be in from the beginning? How bad was it? Universal white male suffrage. If you were a white man that didn't own a certain amount of property, you couldn't even vote here till 1824, 48 years after the Federalist Papers was written, 47 years after the Constitution was ratified. It took that long. The founding fathers did not want anybody to have any rights but them. Go read the Constitution and leave out the Bill of Rights. Do you understand, conservatives and conservatarians, the trick bag that you would be in if you got what you wanted? Because most of your last names are not Madison, Jefferson, Washington, Carter, or Lee. Why did I say that? Because that's how bad that trick bag is before you even think about where black people fit in there. What do we do about it? At the moment, we are too divided as a people to be able to back up anyone the way we did before. If Dr. Martin Luther King came back today, he would have a very hard time. Because we are now spending time arguing with each other. And that's one of the reasons why on this channel, I'm trying to pull us back. I'm trying to pull us back. You know what you do? One of the things in the United States that truly makes us exceptional. The United States is going to be exceptional. And I probably need to talk about this more on the channel. This is how we're going to be exceptional. In 1790, We passed the first of the world's intellectual property laws. It's the oldest intellectual property laws in the Western world, whereby people that didn't have money but had inventions, processes, and then later on books and artistic creations could create a property right from this. This is the first universally applied civil right that there is in the United States of America. And we're not going to sit up here and say that it was applied evenly in 1790 or any year thereafter. And that even it's applied evenly to Black people today because you have to know what it is that you're doing out there. Now, like I said, we're not going to sell anything on this channel till it's monetized. It ain't monetized, it's monetized. But it just so happened that I'm the author of a book called The Freedom Guide for Music Creators, which breaks all this stuff down for those of you who are musicians and creatives, so you can get up on this and get your copyrights and get your things in order so that you can have your stuff protected, and then you can make contracts and things and do split letters so you can split up your stuff without worrying about it in the end. Why? Because this is the civil right that's available to all citizens. And now we have this thing. When I wrote that book in 2008, I mean, Facebook was new, MySpace was still the thing, and we hadn't invented half this other stuff. I think YouTube was actually in its infancy, but Google didn't own it yet. Well, the Alphabet company, technically. Today, if you can make a nice background and sit up and run your mouth, you can build an intellectual property asset. Multiple, actually. If you can just sit up and run your mouth. You see, y'all come over here, 712 of you. Thank you very much for every one of you. Come over here. All I need is 1,000 of you to come over here and 4,000 watch hours, and this becomes an asset for me that generates money. That's how it's done. And only in the United States of America have we really developed this ability out. Now, on one hand, it's very bad that people monetize anything. But here's what I want to tell you. The struggle between capital and labor with the people that are not unified, no, we're not going to get out of that trick bag that way. Capital knows that there are more individuals that need a job than there are individuals who can unify to change things, except, of course, in certain locales. And the more resentful and the more angry a group of people are with each other, Madison knew exactly what he was doing. Many Karl Marx dominated systems are no longer running that well. Madison's system got a hard knock last year, but it's still running. Madison was an evil genius. But this is how you sidestep the power struggle. Mr. Kevin Durant has developed his ability to the point that he can go toe-to-toe and talk to management and at least have a chance, even with a contract signed. Every one of you listening to me has something you can do, and you can develop the value and believe in the value of that and develop it on out. Every one of you. And then you get together, you stop arguing, you make the protections you need to make. We can't get away from the fact that 30% of the men in the community are felons. It is what it is. Now, some of them are, to be fair, I belong to a church that has a reentry program that we give space to, and that we're getting ready to use our nonprofit ability to develop more. I'm not saying all of these men are necessarily dangerous, but that puts you in a load because a felon's going to have a hard time being earned income, getting a job. Capital is like, I don't have to employ you. Now I can really mess y'all up because I don't have to give any of them a job. So I'm going to cripple your whole community because of decisions that you made that you didn't necessarily understand were going to cost you your whole life of earning income. But I keep trying to tell y'all, and I keep trying to tell y'all, there are 3 kinds of income. Nobody can stop you from getting on this computer and learning how to make good investments. Nobody can stop you from going on this computer and using your talent and building a business. I am a publisher. I started out with music. I now do between 10 and 28 written items a week, and y'all see these videos. And there's more coming. Because in the United States of America, I can use this and create property and assets for myself. And you can too. Sidestep the power struggle. We are not unified enough at this moment to get capital to do anything for us. Goldman Sachs is handing out some loans to about 1 million Black women over the next 10 years. But look here, $10,000. But look here, do you know how much those Black women must have developed themselves to qualify? I know a lot of Black men are mad about that. I want you to think about this. What we really need to find out, it's like Patti LaBelle and her sweet potato pies. People were so upset knowing that they and their mama and their grandma and their aunt could cook a good sweet potato pie. Everybody's online upset about it, talking about hers ain't no good. I got hers from the store and mine is better. But yeah, but you didn't look at the work that she did to learn how to get that pie where it was. Instead of being, it's like I told y'all yesterday, instead of being mad at those black men who are on there talking about waiting for the grid to go down to do various things to black people, that's a blessing in that, first of all, you know, there are a few like that out there. And then second of all, you know what, maybe you do need to have your emergency supplies together because as I saw today, a whole bunch of people got up and their whole life disappeared. There was a major fire in San Francisco. And I mean, it was close enough to me, 4 blocks away, smoke just going. Their whole life was disappearing. You do not know. So maybe we can learn how to look at what other people have around us and not argue about it, not fight with it, not be eaten up with resentment, and do what James Madison never wanted us to do. Get together with like-minded people, sidestep the power struggle, and learn how to create something for yourself and invest in others. How's that for a thought? How's that for something to do beside arguing? Kevin Durant wasn't wrong. He knew his value. He went and at least he tried it. A tiny thing called a contract, but at least he tried it. Take it as an inspiration. Don't argue with people. Don't be in arguments about silly stuff. Find out what you've got here. Use what's in your hand. Develop the value. Find like-minded people and prosper. We'll get in. I gotta do more about 3 types of income again. It's been a while since I've done that video. I'm not a financial advisor, so I have to do it in a kind of at least a generalized way, just for information purposes. But we'll get into that again. Stop arguing with people, step back from foolishness, develop the value that you have, and get together with like-minded people and stop worrying about all this other stuff. All right. Y'all have a good day now. Goodbye. And again, Lamar, thank you for bringing to my attention that I was wrong. And I'll look out and I'll just have an understanding. Apparently, YouTube has, like I said, somebody with Confederate ancestors was probably bad, but we defended them again. Y'all take care now. Bye.